Colorado has a particular problem with car thefts. One particular way of pulling off the crime gives thieves a days-long head start. A politician targeted with a false allegation of child sex abuse.
You involve my child, and it brings me to my knees. And it becomes a different kind of fight.
Coloradans are being told we're getting a property tax cut, yet our taxes are likely to go up. So how does that happen? And someone to look up to, way up.
People who look like me and have grown up with my background can really do anything, even go to space.
A down-to-earth lesson, tonight on Next. Colorado's the worst in the country for car theft per capita these days, and thieves have figured out that the area around DIA is a prime spot because they can steal a car and get a head start while the owner is away traveling. Add to that a new criminal strategy to quickly put those stolen vehicles in a new owner's name. Our Steve Steger shows us how it's done.
We told my son Archer to remember where we parked at Pikes Peak Parking.
It's quite an accomplishment for a 5-year-old to remember where a truck is parked at the airport after 7 days at the happiest place on earth. But Jacob Perotto's son knew just where to go when the family got back from Disney World.
Walked over to where it originally parked, and it wasn't there. And Archer said, it was parked right here. I don't understand, where is it?
The 2006 GMC truck was gone. Perotto called the cops.
So I had to scramble to find my registration, gave him the VIN number and the plate number, and he said that that vehicle did not belong to me. He said that it was registered under a different name.
He repeated it.
I thought I may have misspoke.
It still showed as registered under a different name. The officer told Perotto the truck was registered in Colorado on May 9th, while he and his family were in Florida.
That's impossible. It's my truck.
We'd never heard of anything like this before, but the Colorado Metro Auto Theft Task Force told us with the rise in car theft, they're seeing more cases like this, where a thief steals a car that they know might take a while to be reported stolen, gets enough information to fake a title, then tries to sell the car to someone else before the car is ever reported stolen. It's left Perotto spending a week now trying to prove that the truck was even his in the first place. Still unsure how in the heck the thief pulled this off.
My best guess is he forged my signature on a title and somehow cooked up a bill of sale. I don't understand how you could do that, and so quickly.
Now, DPD told me they're looking into Perotto's case, and they've heard of a few similar cases like this. They say if you know that your car is stolen and retitled like this, you should work with law enforcement to just try to get this whole thing figured out. The Auto Theft Task Force says never keep your title or any documents inside your car that give away any details about you. Perotto isn't sure whether or not his title was inside the car. It's a car he bought a few years ago. He owned it outright, so he had the title. Not sure if it was in there. Working on getting a duplicate title now. Just a reminder, because he said he talked to LifeLock, or he signed up for LifeLock after this, because you don't know what's in your car that somebody might have access to, they might try to steal.
And you said work with law enforcement, but we hear from a lot of people who report stolen cars, and police are like, yeah, take a number.
Yeah, they're busy. They're incredibly busy, especially in District 7 right now, where they're seeing so many car thefts right now.
Steve, thank you. Denver City Council is picking back up its discussion tonight about whether to ban concealed carry in city parks and buildings. They put off that decision last month over concerns that the rule could be disproportionately used against people of color and concerns over whether it's concealed carry permit holders that are really the ones contributing to escalating crime in Denver. Aurora's former police chief, Vanessa Wilson's partner, is accused of retaliating against a city council member who was critical of the chief. Robin Niceta is accused of making a false report of child sexual abuse against City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky. Jurinsky's one of the conservatives on Aurora City Council, and she became Chief Wilson's chief critic after she said this on talk radio.
Chief Vanessa Wilson is trash.
Niceta, seen here standing behind Wilson at a press conference, allegedly made a call to Human Services the day after the councilwoman's comment on the radio. Niceta is accused of claiming that she was an employee at a restaurant that Jurinsky owned, told DHS that she saw Jurinsky sexually assault her own child. DHS investigated this and found no evidence that the councilwoman did anything wrong. Investigators traced the call to DHS back to Nicetta's address. Nicetta herself was a caseworker at Arapahoe County DHS. She since resigned. She hasn't yet turned herself in to face the charges. Councilwoman Jurinsky spoke today about being falsely accused of child abuse and suggested, without evidence, that the former police chief could have been involved.
If Chief Wilson knew anything about this, if she knew that these false allegations were made against me, she was still the chief of police at that time. If she did not report that and she knew about it, I want her prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law as well.
Jurinsky's attorney wants Arapahoe County to review every human services case that Nicetta was involved in. The county tells us they haven't made a decision about whether they're going to do that. They're working to determine next steps. We reached out to both the former chief and her partner and have not heard back. Speeding's still speeding if you're 5 over the limit or if you're going 15 over. You're just choosing to speed a little bit less. It's the same basic concept to describe a property tax bill that was just signed into law today. You will hear legislators claim credit for a property tax cut. As politics guy Marshall Zellinger points out, your property taxes are probably going up, just slower.
Saving Coloradans money is different than Coloradans paying less than they pay now. A bill signed today by Democratic Governor Jared Polis changes the equation that determines your property tax. It does not necessarily mean that dollar amount will go down.
The number on the piece of paper will go up. I think we need to be honest about that, but it's going to go up a lot less than it would have.
The bill was sponsored by an unlikely pair, Democratic State Senator Chris Hansen and Republican State Representative Patrick Neville.
Look, it's probably not a surprise to anyone that I hate taxes, but the worst kind of taxes are property taxes, where you are literally paying the government rent on something that you bought that they didn't help you pay for.
To understand what the new law does, try to follow my math. At least my math on a single-family home that's valued at $500,000 today. Next year, when you get your 2023 property tax bill, it will be based on your home's 2022 home value. And then it's multiplied by a 6.95% residential assessment rate. In 2024, when you get your property tax bill, your home value will have been reassessed, and it likely goes up. Let's say $550,000. To combat that increase, the new law takes $15,000 off the top and makes it tax-free. The rest is multiplied by a lower assessment rate. In this example, you're paying $1,400 more, but less than you would have without these adjustments.
For counties, property tax is our primary revenue stream.
Gigi Pingino with Colorado Counties, Inc., an association of county commissioners throughout the state, points out the uncertainty that exists because the numbers are estimates right now. And for counties, property taxes pay for local needs,
such as public health services. Counties are also responsible for running elections. We maintain thousands of miles of roads and bridges.
The state plans to backfill most of the money that counties do not get because of the property tax changes. But the equation changes are supposed to go away after 2 years. So what happens then for counties and for property taxpayers?
This gives me an opportunity to state that humans are really lousy at predicting the future. So we just simply don't know.
I didn't even get into the way the math works for non-residential, like business owners, which get a reduction in property tax assessment rates for the first time in 4 decades. The state is trying to save a total of $700 million with the property tax math from this bill. So the equation in 2025, if you want to look way ahead, that will be based on a percentage to get us to that total $700 million in collective savings. So Kyle, on the off chance that we, as all property taxpayers, have saved beyond the $700 million, the percentage in the equation will have to adjust to have us pay a little bit more than we would otherwise to give a little bit back. But it's unlikely that's going to happen.
I look forward to you covering this again when somebody claims credit for it in a campaign ad. Marshall, thank you. As you saw in Marshall's story there, we spoke with Republican State Representative Patrick Neville of Castle Rock today. First time since the GOP State Assembly, where Neville nominated Joe Oltmann for governor. Oltmann, the conservative activist from Douglas County, who was suggested executing Governor Polis and executing more than a dozen U.S. senators, journalists, and various political opponents. We asked Neville, the former Republican House Minority Leader, why he would nominate somebody for governor who said, listen to what he said.
You are a traitor. So that's what I sent to Governor Polis. Gallows. I had to stretch that rope.
The premise of your question, I think, is off. that never happened. It was a joke made in jest.
I did call for the hanging of traitors 100%, because traitors to the nation, if you go and look at what happens for treason, it is punishable by death. And so I think they should be hung 2 inches off the ground so they choke to death.
He asked me last minute, and quite honestly, I thought it'd be a little bit humorous to do it and go forward with it, but I think the premise of your question's off.
It's not fundamentally flawed to talk about hanging treasonous traitors. It's not. What it is it's a fact.
I think he's been mischaracterized by a lot in the media on what he's actually done.
If you don't like me talking about the gallows and hanging those that are traitors against our country, change the law, because it's in the Constitution that you should be hung.
You know what? Bottom line, we need some more humor. And so people get so threatened over humorous jokes, and that's what it was meant to be.
The adequate response for treason is 100% being hung by your neck till you're dead. I don't even care if you're 2 inches off the ground, as long as you can't breathe and you're a traitor to our nation. I said it. Sorry. Vengeance is God's, but consequences belong to us.
That is Joe Oltmann, who's got quite the following in Colorado's Republican political circles these days. At the state assembly, Oltmann ultimately declined the nomination for governor after he used his speaking time to support some of his allies, Senate candidate Ron Hanks and Secretary of State candidate Tina Peters. Both of them won big and got the top line on the Republican primary ballot. Colorado has seen 2 insider attempts to get into voting systems in search of election rigging evidence. A judge ordered Elbert County's Republican clerk to identify who was given copies of his county's election hard drives, and we now know it was former GOP Minority Leader Joe Stengel, and the other copy went to a local attorney named Rick Morgan. Clerk Dallas Schroeder had refused to give up the information to Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold. She sued to figure out who had copies of these voting system hard drives. Newly unsealed court documents reveal that Stengel and Morgan were the 2 mystery men who got the hard drives. The court says that the men were given metal boxes with the hard drives inside, so I guess it's possible that they didn't know what they had been given. Clerk Schroeder also had to provide the judge with detailed records showing where the copies of the voting system hard drive had been at all times since those copies were made. Every single week, you show up for someone in our community who needs help. That's what I like about you. Last week, it was young Coloradans who were aging out of the foster care system. Together, you raised $32,000 for Bridging the Gap, a program that offers young people coming out of the foster system housing, educational support, childcare, career counseling, the foundation to build a stable and successful life after time in the foster care system. You're helping to make more of that happen. All right, so we got a new week, new chance to help someone somewhere in Colorado. Do you know of a nonprofit that could use a boost? As your weekly word of thanks microgiving campaigns near the $9 million mark, would love to hear your ideas. Email them to next@9news.com. I read each and every one. Aurora's mayor says the city needs the ability to sweep homeless camps from under interstates. CDOT says Aurora already has it. A different approach to the problem of people needing homes, giving them a place to live. One of Denver's sanctioned campsites moves after a year of successes. And she sat where they sat. Now she's sitting in space, telling students how to get from here to there. Next. Tonight, Aurora City Council will talk about where the city could put a 24-hour shelter for people experiencing homelessness. The city's required to have that shelter option before it can enforce the camping ban it recently passed. That ban, like Denver's, prohibits all urban camping on private and public property. It requires 72 hours notice before an unauthorized camp can be swept away. And then here's the shelter part. The city must have an open bed for every person being displaced, or else Aurora cannot shut down the campsite. Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman has said that he's interested in hearing other shelter options beyond just converting the Aurora Day Resource Center into a 24-hour shelter. Mayor Kaufman also specifically said publicly that he wants the state to put in writing that Aurora is allowed to sweep homeless camps on CDOT property, like from beneath the I-225 overpasses. CDOT told us today the mayor already has that written permission. The sanctioned camping site in Denver at Regis University is going to move next month. The Colorado Village Collaborative announced today that it will close the Regis location in June and will set up a site on land owned by St. Francis Center at 2nd and Federal in the Barnum neighborhood. The new location is scheduled to be ready for people to move in by June 2nd. The nonprofit says the Regis Safe Outdoor Space was open for a full year. 114 people stayed there over the year. The nonprofit says 24 moved into more stable housing. Right now, there are 48 people living there. When the camp gets moved to St. Francis Center, it's expected to be able to house up to 60 people at a time.
Sunny, hot, and dry until this afternoon when these clouds rolled in and we've got some gusty thunderstorms overhead, producing wind and lightning and not a lot of rain. Temperatures are some 15 degrees warmer than average. We'll see these numbers again tomorrow. Tracking isolated storms again, producing some really gusty winds and a little bit of lightning, but some areas have reported rain around the Pinery and in Parker. Out on the eastern plains, those storms move out. We're going to do it all over again tomorrow. We get sunshine to start, clouds by midday, and about a 20 to 30% chance that one or two of those storms will roll over your neighborhood. 83 tomorrow, 78 Wednesday, the warmest day with high fire danger Thursday, ahead of a cool and rainy Friday with highs in the 40s.
Someone to look up to, 240 miles above the heads of young women in Colorado.
I think finding role models for women, especially women of color, going into STEM fields, they're pretty few and far between.
A call to a high school from the International Space Station. Next.
Fairview high schoolers were called together today, all at once, because somebody wanted to talk to them. She picked the time because she was calling from space. Our Byron Reed was there.
For the students at Fairview High School in Boulder, school spirit is reaching new heights.
Students at Fairview were selected to ask questions to 2 female astronauts.
Lauren Petworten is a senior at the high school that's getting attention worldwide.
One of those astronauts, Jessica Watkins, is the first black female on the International Space Station, and she is also a Fairview alumnus.
She says she's interested in hearing what Watkins has to say about women of color going into careers in science, technology, engineering, and math or STEM. She says it's a field that she's pursuing after graduation.
I'm biracial, half Indian, half white. I think finding role models for women, especially women of color, going into STEM fields, they're pretty few and far between, but the ones that have made it are absolutely remarkable and a huge inspiration to me and others like me.
Jessica Watkins graduated from Fairview High School in 2006 and was selected by NASA to join the astronaut candidate class 5 years ago. Today, Watkins and fellow astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti answered questions virtually to get students interested in STEM careers.
There's a cool factor, but it's also very important that students can see the student that walked these very halls can achieve something so awesome and fantastic.
The Earth is just absolutely gorgeous.
Watkins will join a long list of astronauts who have continuously worked aboard the space station.
We're just super lucky to be here.
It's an achievement that has students like Lauren excited to see an alumnus of their school soaring to new heights.
People who look like me and have grown up with my background can really do anything, even go to space.
For Next.
Thank you all so much for your time.
I'm Byron Reed.
Your feedback about Colorado's car thefts and political threats. Next. Lyle writes in about right-wing talk about hanging the governor. He says it wasn't a joke. Those statements were serious. The tone was serious. What a load of gaslighting crap. Can I say that on TV? I don't know. We'll find out. Bill says to prevent car thefts near the airport, they should be comparing a photograph of the driver of the car when they park to the driver when they leave. Right now, they take a picture of a license plate. Could you imagine that? We'd all be suspects. Second driver has a tan and a smile. That's just vacation.